welcome back. This is a very important episode of the Coaching Circle podcast, and I'm so excited that you're here because if you've ever felt like you're stuck, I'm here to tell you that maybe it's not that you're actually stuck, maybe you're just numb. Now, let me talk about this because a lot of people come to me and they say they feel stuck because something's not working, something external to them is not working. It might be their strategy or their offer or the algorithms, or they're not getting reach or whatever that might be. But underneath all of that, most of the time, what's really happening is some emotional disconnection. And this is so powerful to understand because when you've worked so hard to not feel bad, and look, I have to be honest, I honestly believe that most people that go into business have got some form of emotional trauma, childhood trauma, emotional neglect, something in their past that actually drives them to step out and do something that the average person doesn't do. And I would love to know if you agree with that, because certainly that's been my experience and a lot of what I see with a lot of my clients. But what that means is people get so hooked up in not feeling bad that they actually lose their capacity to be guided to feel good. And if you've got big goals, you have to be okay with feeling good, or otherwise you're never going to achieve those goals. Because why would you want to achieve something if it's not going to make you feel good, right? And that subtle energy is what blocks growth, because you can't expand or create or magnetize when you're disconnected from your emotional range. And this is really, really important. So I want to talk to you about this, the illusion of neutrality, right? The illusion of neutral. Because the people that I see that are very good at being neutral, they are very good at trying to stay predictable, doing things that don't rock the boat, and really avoiding pain in any way, right? Not upsetting people. But safety and satisfaction are not the same thing. And in fact, safety and growth certainly are not the same thing. Safety is more about contraction and not creating too much movement, whereas growth is about expansion. It's going outside of the rules. It's going outside of the boundaries. It's going bigger, brighter, being seen more, being felt more, being heard more. So safety is supposed to be a foundation, not a destination, right? If you're just striving to be safe, then you're missing the core foundation of your own internal safety that's blocking you from having a large emotional range. And like I said, so many business owners that I work with have built this emotional safety around not feeling anything too much. They might even pride themselves on it. They might be really good at being busy, because guess what? Being busy helps you not feel too much, right? And this is the thing that people might be saying, right? Well, you know, I'm not really stressed, but they're also not inspired, right? They might be saying, well, I'm not fully broke, but they're also not abundant. Or that I'm not unhappy, but they're not lit up either. And that's not freedom. That, my friend, is survival, because not feeling bad is not the same thing as feeling good, right? Let's say that again. Not feeling bad is not the same thing as feeling good. And if you know anything about quantum physics and the Cartesian coordinates, and especially in NLP, when we talk about quantum linguistics, there is a whole quadrant around what something is and what something isn't, and how it exists in reality. And people often get caught up in that, well, it's not bad. It's a very Australian thing as well. Well, it's not bad, right? But it's not good either. That is the problem. So when you think about some of these examples of where this might be showing up for you, because not trying to upset someone isn't the same as trying to make someone feel good, right? Not having a problem isn't the same thing as having a solution or something that you're striving for. Not disliking where you are is not the same thing as loving where you are, right? Not having a bad time is not the same as having a good time. not feeling stressed about money is not the same feeling as being abundant, feeling abundant when it comes to money. So when you live in that middle ground, life becomes functional, but it's not fulfilling. You've removed the discomfort, but you've also muted your desire, right? And the longer you stay there, the more you start to believe that life or that calm equals contentment. And really, it's just emotional flatlining. It's just like, right? And you know what happens if that goes on too long? It's no good. Now, look, I can really relate to this. So it's no surprise that this is a topic that I talk about and that my clients have this problem, because when I was a little girl, I learned that emotions weren't welcome. And, if you've been around for a while, you probably know that my parents separated when I was very little, and I actually lived with my dad. My parents were immigrants from the United Kingdom. My mum didn't have any family here. My dad did. And so I lived with my dad. My dad was also emotionally avoidant, right? He could not deal with emotions at all. And I learned how to be a very good girl. I'm very, very good at pleasing my dad and making my dad feel important, right? But also in that environment, I learned that expressing how I felt was met with shame, humiliation, and laughter. Like when I think about the key emotional experiences that I had when I was a child, I do not remember being nurtured, comforted, or anything like that. Right? I did when I was with my mum, but not when I was with my dad. And in fact, he would send me away, he would withdraw, he would laugh at me, and I often felt humiliated or shamed to express myself. And I was teased about my voice. And that's a big part of my expression as well. And as a child, I never knew how to regulate those emotions. And I became very independent. I became very closed off. But it wasn't anything I was doing wrong as a child. And I want you to know that this for yourself as well. If you had anything similar, it wasn't that you were doing anything wrong. It was the responsibility of the adults around you to help guide you, to help you grow, to help you process your emotions in a healthy way, and to really better show you that's okay, so you can build that inner sense of safety within yourself while being fully expressed. Okay, but instead, the message I got, and what the message I know a lot of other people got, was tone it down, right? Children should be seen and not heard. Don't make a fuss. Don't be too much. Go to your room. Stop crying. I'll give you something to cry about. Right? These are all things that, and especially if you're a Gen Xer, I no doubt you've heard those things before. And they're things that we kind of joked about, about how tough that made us. But it also made a lot of people feel very emotionally unsafe. And when you feel emotionally unsafe, it affects your value. Right? It affects your value. You learn to close parts of yourself off, that parts of yourself aren't okay. And especially those emotional, expressive, feminine side, right? If you get taught to tone all that down and that it's not acceptable, and especially if that comes from the masculine or the wounded masculine, then that is what will really shape how you express your value to the world. Okay, because the masculine teaches you how to express your value to the world. And if you were taught that parts of you were not okay to be expressed, then it affects how valuable you feel. And for myself, I learned to earn love and validation through being composed, by being a people pleaser, by being the good girl, by being capable and competent, rather than through the truth and authenticity of who I was, my full expression. And so for years, that became the energetic template that I brought into business as well. And if you've ever found yourself working harder or just pushing through and, just staying composed and having that sort of armor on, having your game face on, while you were quietly feeling unseen or underappreciated, well, that's what happens when emotional control becomes your protection strategy. And I see this in a lot of high achieving people as well, because you know what? This is the interesting thing, is that capping your emotions or denying your emotions can get you so far, right? You can be a doer, right? You can be a doer, but you'll be an unfulfilled doer. So you might be achieve things, but you'll never feel fully satisfied. You'll always be looking for what is the next thing to try to feel that feeling of belonging and acceptance and, you know, all of that stuff, rather than really being able to feel into your accomplishments and your value and that connection and belonging. Now, there's all ways that this shows up, and I see it with my clients. And there's a client I was working with who was telling me that she said, I don't feel safe to feel happy, because, you know, she'd had a whole situation in her life and background where that the idea of joy felt dangerous, because, you know, what if we're happy and then all of a sudden it gets taken away? Right? This is something that a lot of people find as well. If I feel too good, then something bad might happen. It's almost like I'm going to jinx it, right? By feeling good. So I'll just never feel good so that nothing bad is going to happen. And that's how emotional neglect works. It confuses your nervous system. Now, it might be that your parents or whoever was around was doing the best that they could at the time, but their best might still not have been what you needed or what you deserved. And so we need to separate those things, right? We need to separate those things, because as an adult, it's your responsibility to resolve how you feel. It doesn't come from blaming people. It comes from understanding that your needs weren't met. And so then you need to meet those needs for yourself. Okay, so all of these things, different ways that this shows up for people, where they learn to just be in this kind of neutrality, right? Being in the middle. It feels safer than reaching for more and upsetting anyone. And there's a whole process that I've developed that really changes things for people when I take them through. It's called the turning point. It's an incredible emotional freedom process. And the amount of shifts that people have when I take them through this, and they get to actually realize what they deserved, and then they can reconnect with that very, very quickly, right? And that's what happened for this client. She realized that happiness wasn't actually dangerous. It was just unfamiliar. And happiness is not like a thing that you've either got or you've lost. We all know that. You're not happy 24/7, right? You'll be happy, and then you might be excited, and then you might be, you know, a bit sad, or you might be, there is an emotional range that happens. You might be angry, you know, all kinds of things that happen. So if you're happy and then you're not happy, guess what? You can be happy again, right? That's how it works. Emotions work in waves. They're constantly shifting. We can get back into any kind of emotion that we want at will. And once we learn that the safety in that, it becomes much easier to lean into those good feelings and be guided for those good feelings, be guided to do things that are going to bring us more of those good feelings, which includes being more successful in business, having good boundaries around our time and our energy, having more money, having healthy relationships. Because safety and expansion finally start to coexist. When we create that inner safety in ourselves, we're not looking for it externally. We create inner safety, and then we can expand. And that's where the exciting stuff really happens. There's another client that I was working with recently who was telling me about another way that this shows up. And that was that she was saying, you know what, I've noticed I'll even play down how great my holidays were. She's been taking some great holidays, and she was starting to say things like, oh yeah, it was great, but oh, you know, this thing happened and that thing happened, to try to play it down, that it wasn't all that incredible. Like, it was incredible, but she couldn't fully express how incredible it was. She had to try to play it down a bit. And this is emotional censorship, right? That self-censorship where we mute our joy to protect other people's comfort. But where do we learn that from? Whoever says that you being joy and having great experiences and loving your life is going to make other people uncomfortable? And I think the ones who get this, because this is really interesting, I've noticed in the amount of people that have told me recently, most of them have been men actually, which is really interesting, that when they've seen my holidays, because I've been to Europe, like in the last sort of 12 months or just over, I've been to Thailand, I've been to Bali, I've been, to all over UK and all over Europe, and doing all these holidays. I'm going to India in December. And people have been saying, oh yeah, I'm like going to start following you. I'm so jealous of that, rah, rah, rah. But I don't care. And they're joking. But I just say, I'm like, well, you know what? You can just be inspired by it. Right? You can be inspired by it. That's what can happen. People can choose to be inspired by you. They're not stuck in a reality where they can't have what you want. They're in a reality where you're demonstrating your joy and your expansion and what you get to create and have for yourself. You're demonstrating it to them so that they can see, then start planting the seeds of maybe that's something I could create for myself. Right? It's inspiration. But there's so many of us, and especially women, have been conditioned to do this, to downplay things, right? We learned that our light can make other people feel small. That if we shrink our joy, then, we're going to lower our energetic capacity to receive, though. That's the problem. If you shrink your joy, you're lowering your energetic capacity to receive. You're lowering your energetic capacity to attract people that have got the capacity to match you. Right? Even if that's in relationships or in business with your clients, if you are shrinking yourself, you are disconnecting for those that have got the capacity to match you, right? To stay connected to those who don't have the capacity. Where what you really want to be doing is inspiring those who don't yet have the capacity and connecting with those who do have the capacity. They're looking for you in your expansion. And this is the thing about abundance, is that it requires openness. It requires openness from you being fully expressed. That's how you express your value. You are open. You express the truth of who you are. Your value is in who you're being, not just in what you're doing. And if you can't receive attention or admiration without feeling guilty or feeling like you're doing something wrong, well, then how are you going to fully receive money? And if you're in business, the highest intention, I don't care who you are or what you think you're about, if you're in business, your highest intention is to make money in business. It absolutely is. Otherwise, you don't need to have a business. You could have a hobby, you could have a charity, you could have, you could be doing it for free. There's all things you could do, but if you have a business, you're there to make money, right? And so you have to be open. We have to do this work. You've got to be in that expression of being okay to receive and be accepted of the value, your self-expression. And so this is why so much of the work that I do is with high-performing CEOs, coaches, leaders, business owners, that whether they're building to their first 6 figures or they're building to their, multiple 7 and 8 figures, I'm always doing the work to help people to give themselves permission to feel powerful, to be fully expressed, to be excited and accomplished. And also to be deeply nurturing and soft and emotional and human, right? Being vulnerable in that as well. Because emotional freedom is never about feeling bad. Okay, there will be times when you have a range of emotions, but emotional freedom isn't about never feeling bad. Okay, this is really important. It's about feeling everything without abandoning yourself. There's going to be times where you are angry. There's going to be times where you are fearful. There's going to be times where you are, embarrassed, whatever. But once you feel those, be okay with feeling those feelings and resolving them within yourself, then you can push that energy into the good feelings. Of feeling accomplished, of feeling, excited, of feeling freedom, of feeling joy, feeling powerful. All of those things come with that emotional range. But if you were, like I said, not taught this as a child, you might not have felt safe to feel these things, right? You might have been abandoning yourself when feelings come up, making sure somebody else is more uncomfortable. It's because so many of us were controlled through emotional neglect or emotional control. When you look at conflict between people, you will notice emotional control. People that want to control others will control their emotions. They won't get excited for them, they won't celebrate them, they'll cause dramas. It's emotional control. So think about that in your life. Do you have people around you that fully celebrate you and encourage you and express happiness and joy and love and all those things to you? Or are you around people that are a bit emotionally withdrawn, who kind of downplay or dismiss your excitement or your achievements? It's a really interesting thing to start taking note of. And it's not to blame or name or shame anyone, but to be aware of, because your job is to stop abandoning yourself and be fully expressed in who you are. Right? Give people the opportunity. They can rise up to meet you, or they can have less access to you. Right? It's so important that we know this so that we are backing ourselves. So often we've learned to self-silence, right? To quieten ourselves down, make sure nobody else felt uncomfortable. And that's what keeps people locked in that survival mode, right? Not because they don't have strategy, but because they don't have emotional permission. They're so worried about not making other people feel uncomfortable that they can't recognize what that's making themselves feel. They can't recognize how they're abandoning themselves. And so you want to really look after yourself, right? Nurture yourself, give yourself permission. When you start to feel safe being powerful and emotional and fully expressed in the truth of who you are, well, that's when everything changes. Right? You stop protecting your limitations and you start protecting your potential. Right? That's when you stop placing boundaries around your survival. And when I say boundaries around your survival, I mean like you only tell people no when you're literally booked out, or you're just telling people you're busy all the time, or that you're exhausted or you're sick. If that's the only time you can say no to somebody, you've got boundaries for survival. You want to have boundaries around your abundance. Boundaries where you get to feel emotionally expressed, where you get to feel energized, where you get to feel abundant, where you've got time to do what it is that you want, where you can say no to the things that you don't want to do and yes to the things that you do want to do. Right? You've got to put boundaries around your abundance. So boundaries around your abundance, they can sound like things knowing that you don't have to overgive to prove your value, that you can feel joy and success without feeling guilty, right? Knowing that your emotions don't make you weak, they make you a real person, and your emotions are always something that are going to process through. They're not an identity. Getting angry does not make you an angry person, right? Being excited does not make you immature, right? Like you're allowed to feel all of these emotions. They come in waves. You feel them, they peter off again. You go through a different type of emotion. It's all completely normal. You're allowed. So it comes right back to that thing. If you want to achieve big goals, and your big goals could be anything. Your big goals could be the amount of time that you've got off. It could be, how many weeks you get off a year. It could be how much money you want to make. It could be how many followers that you have on social media. It could be, all kinds of things. Whatever it is for you, you have to be okay with big emotions. Because the bigger the vision, the bigger the emotional bandwidth it requires. Excitement, fear, uncertainty, desire, they all come up when you expand, not because you're off track, but because your system is stretching into a new capacity. You're being fully expressed in that space, and you can't create an extraordinary life from emotional suppression. How do you know you're having an extraordinary life if you can't feel it? Right? You can only do it from that emotional permission, the permission you give yourself to have those things. So I want you to really think about this and ask yourself, are there areas that you can recognize that you've chosen neutrality over aliveness? Do you mute your joy or your confidence or your truth to feel safe? What would change if you gave yourself that full permission to feel powerful and emotional, to be completely visible? That people can, because this is the thing, if you're completely visible, God knows people are going to have judgments about that. Of course they are, right? Especially those people that don't feel like they can be fully expressed. But that's where you have the inner safety. That's where you have the inner permission that it's okay to be you. Because you're not here to be neutral. You're not here to be vanilla. I mean, I like vanilla, right? But I also like chocolate and strawberry and mocha and all kinds of things. You're here to be expressed, to feel deeply. If you've got emotions, this is the thing, right? If you've got emotions, why would it be your job to pretend that you don't? Why would you have emotions if you've got to pretend that you don't? It's part of who you are. It's part of how you express who you are. So to feel deeply is to receive fully, right? To create from your truth, not your conditioning. And when you feel safe to be all of you, well, then you're giving that power and emotion and joy and depth, and all of that is coming out. It's the expression of your value. And then abundance becomes part of that, right? It's not something that you chase, it's something that you naturally hold. Because you need to create that safety to hold all of you. It was exactly what you were supposed to learn as a child. You were never supposed to learn as a child to hide parts of yourself. You were meant to learn how to express yourself fully. And that's something that you now need to do for yourself as an adult. Oh, I could speak about this so much. I have such passion for people understanding their emotions and the impact that it has on their behavior and their actions and their quality of life and their business and what they get to experience. But if this conversation resonated with you and you feel like there's something here that you want to explore more, reach out to me. It's exactly the work that I do at a really deep level with my clients. There is a upcoming book. I'm going to be talking more about that. And that's a process that I've created, the turning point. It's a process for creating emotional freedom in minutes. And it's about remembering that freedom isn't the absence of pain. It's the presence of life. It's the ability to feel safe in your emotions. It's what's there when you're not trying to dampen everything down. You're here to be expressed in your truth and powerful in your value. And so, like I said, if this has resonated with you and you feel like you need to do some further work on this, reach out to me. You can contact me on Instagram or LinkedIn, email me. All the details are in the show notes. And just know that when you're free your emotions, you're free in your potential. They're not separate.